now we're uncredible.
Welcome to the Uncredible Podcast. My name's Jeremy, and I'm Uncredible. Hopefully, if everything worked out, I have a new intro music. I'm playing around with this software called Suno, I think it's called. It's an AI generating music, and put together a little song for the Uncredible and a little bit of a taste of it there at the intro. And we came up with a new introductory sort of an image, just sort of something we can share on all the socials and stuff. So hopefully that will be a lot less abrasive. I kind of felt like the last intro song that we had was, every time I listened to it on Spotify, I'd go back and listen to it. It's like the sound was really high on the introduction. So hopefully this will be a little bit easier on the ears, changing up the visuals, just having fun with it. AI, by the way, AI is great for everything. I haven't done AI video creation yet, but I've done, this is my first attempt at audio. It went pretty good. I still have to tinker around with it. That was my first attempt, but I like what I came up with. And our main topic today, we're going to talk a little bit about AI, some of the mistakes that it makes, but it has a lot of like good and bad that come from it. And if you're not playing around with it even a little bit, it's super helpful when it comes to like for example, all the articles that I write on uncredible.me, they are all edited with AI. So I write the articles, and it really gives me the freedom to write the articles and not be too worried about going back through. For me, the biggest hang up with writing has always been going back through and fixing all the mistakes that I make, like with grammar and spelling. It's just such a tedious process. I mean, when I wrote my book, The Fury of God, it took me, I think, a year. So it took me like 2 years to write the book, and then another year to just actually like edit it and get the editing process done. And then when I went to the self-publication process through Wespo, it was a whole nother editing process. It was just torture. I was so tired of the editing process by the end of it. It was awful. But so hopefully that song, I'm still figuring out the ins and outs. I want to release that as a single and put it on Spotify and use it on Instagram and things like that. But that's a whole nother world that I'm not sure I understand. So there's some things I got to get set up for that, but maybe it'll show up on Spotify. For now, this is the only place you can get it. So now let's turn our attention to the Substack at uncredible.me, and we're going to look ahead to what's going on next week. We have an article called People Love Tyranny. People Love Tyranny. And I wrote this article because I kind of started to see something about people in general that they actually, and this is a misjudgment or a mischaracterization, is that the word? On my part of other people. My assumption, like I resist control and people telling me what to do. I'm finding there's a lot of people out there that actually like that interplay between someone controlling them and telling them what to do. They actually like that whatever that is. I repel it. I hate that. So like for me, when I sense that somebody's trying to control me or tell me what to do, I hate it. But I'm beginning to notice that there are some people who just absolutely love tyranny. And I noticed it when I went to one of my daughter's opening. It was the color guard opening like parents meeting, and people just kind of like file in line, and they love to be tyrants, and they love to be like tyrants in training. I use the word tyrants loosely. I'm probably blowing it out of proportion, but when you read the article, you'll understand. Like we had to sign in on the sign-in sheet, and I was like, the sign-in sheet doesn't matter. I'm always that guy that wants to like question why we do things. And lo and behold, when we came out of the meeting, those signing sheets were just sitting there waiting to be thrown out. It's like, why did we do this? It was such a weird situation. But yeah, I wrote this article, People Love Tyranny, because in that meeting, I noticed how excited, this is a voluntary thing, right? Nobody's required for school to do this color guard or band. It's a band thing too. It's like marching band. No one's required to do it. It's all voluntary. But man, that meeting was just, it started off like, hey, we need volunteers. And it slowly crept into, this is mandatory and that's mandatory and you're required to. It was weird, man. And I was just sitting there sort of like overthinking everything, as I tend to do. And so I ended up writing this article, People Love Tyranny. And it if you're that person who loves that structure and being a part of like a tiered structure where you're on your way up, I see it at work too. It's like people who love to like move up the ladder. I could care less. Like I don't care personally what your position is. I want to know who you are as a person. So like, oh, this person's coming. You got to be careful. Who cares? That's a person. It's another person. Oh, but they're this, they're that. Who cares? Like whatever. It's just I don't get into that. People are people. And then next week we're also going to have on Monday we're going to do Uncredible the book preview number 4. And I'm looking at this going, ooh, I got to get this one set up. So this past week we completed the introduction. So there are now 3 posts for the Uncredible the book preview samples. And those 3 samples come from the entire introduction. So the entire introduction is now available on the Substack. I do have, if you go to the homepage on the Substack, there's actually, I have broken down on that homepage different, I label some of these articles with tags and then it sorts them by those tags. And one of them is Uncredible the book. Hopefully you can go through that tag and just see the most recent ones. But right now, being there's only 3, those 3 should show up if you're on a desktop. I'm not sure what happens on the mobile. It's probably stacked top to bottom. And you just scroll up through, and I think it's 3 per category. The 3 most recent are showing there. So, but next week we'll have preview number 4, and this will be our first look at chapter 1. I've written a very small part of chapter 1. I think I have 2 stories from my past work life that are completed. I got to get those edited with AI, by the way. But there's a little bit of back and forth with that. I say you should use AI for editing. There's a fine line between letting AI create the entire document and actually having some interplay with it, because AI can screw things up and you got to go back and forth. It's tedious in its own way. You can always undo what it does, but sometimes it goes too far and takes your voice out of it. So you got to be careful of that. But yeah, look for Uncredible the book sample number 4 coming out on Monday, assuming I get that done. And then next week, we're going to have Uncredible clips from episode 2. So I've been pretty consistent with getting 2 weeks now. I guess that's pretty consistent with getting episode clips. So what I'm doing is I'm going back through the episodes and I'm cutting out the segments and putting them on YouTube in their own little, what do they call those? I think it's called channels. I don't know. That you can actually give, it's like an archive or a library. I'm not sure what it's called. But you can give something a label and draw. Oh, playlist. That's what it is. So you can give something a playlist. And so I have like a main topic playlist, a running playlist. And so because our full episodes kind of run the gamut with different topics, we go from running to, politics to the quote of the week at the end. And then the podcast features is sort of all over the place. And I'm trying to break it up. So like YouTube and people who are only interested in like one aspect, like you might just be interested in the political side or the news comments. So that section's there for people who want to do that. So check that out. That's also going to have its own section on the Uncredible website. So Uncredible clips from episode 2 coming next week. We've got episode 0 and episode 1 up. That just came out. Episode 1 just came out yesterday. So check those out. Again, everything's on the Substack at uncredible.me. I will say this. If you're subscribed to the Substack, it's free to subscribe and pretty much all the content will get emailed to you. I decided not to send an email with the for the clips. And the reason I did that is because that's more of like an organizational thing I'm doing. Obviously, everybody has access to them, but I'm trying to build the library and I didn't want to bog people's emails down with like I've already sent out a podcast email with that episode, and if anybody's interacting with the Substack on a regular basis, they'll see it pop up anyway. So don't be looking for an email for the clips, but everything else gets emailed out. Excuse me. If you sign up to the Substack, you will get notifications. I think at this point, Substack used to be mostly email focused. I really think just getting their app is the best way to go. And I'm not really promoting the app per se. It's not the best. I've complained a little bit about the way it's organized. It doesn't, sometimes you'll get articles, and I understand why they do this, but sometimes you'll get articles from like 3 weeks ago showing up in your feed among things from like 2 hours ago. It's weird. I wish they could solve that, but I also know I don't follow a lot of people. I don't subscribe to a lot of people just yet. So it might just be the product of they're showing me the most recent post of the people I follow. That might be what the algorithm's doing. And the most recent post of the people I follow was 3 weeks ago. So that could be on my end more than anything. But the reason I say get the Substack app, because I think that sort of avoids all this email nonsense. You can follow people and subscribe for free. And then you can upgrade your tier for that person's subscription. So those are all options with the Substack. So check that out. And like I said, I always have trouble figuring out where to put this little promotional tidbit, but check out the Uncredible readings on Spotify. With me doing the Uncredible, the book articles, like posting those on the Substack, those audio files are showing up. I'm putting them on they're not showing up. I'm putting them on Spotify as well. So in a way, you can actually hear the audiobook as I produce it before it comes out. So the samples are going to be on Spotify through the Uncredible readings. So check that out. And again, that's all of my articles that I write for the Substack. I record the audio and then I post it on that Substack called Uncredible Readings. Check that out. Links in the description. But if you're like an audio book person, I feel like, I could be wrong. I might be wrong about this, but I feel like that's targeting you as a market, like somebody who likes audio books. These are just short audio articles that you can kind of just like binge through. So I think it reaches that audience. I could be wrong, but I'm doing it anyway because I like doing the recording side. So yeah, that covers pretty much everything that's coming next week on the Substack. Let's flip things over and get into our weekly update. All right, so we are heading into week number 5. So last week was week 4 of marathon training. This is our third marathon. That's going to be July 25th, the halfway to the holidays marathon in Johnstown. It's all kinds of stuff. They've got half marathon. I think they do 10Ks. I can't quite see. I have the promo for it in the frame on the wall, but I can't see it because I got a soda stream in the way. But so we did week 4. Now I recorded the podcast last week on a Thursday. So I was a little ahead of schedule and I did it after my run. So last week on Thursday, I did 7 miles at about an 11-minute pace. It was a scorcher. It was hot out there. It was one of my first runs where I got beat up just by the heat, but my goal, thankfully, for this whole training block is to get mileage on my legs, but not really push the cardio side. And the way the heat has been up until like the last couple of days, it's been a good strategy for me because even if I wanted to push my pace, I couldn't do it, and I would probably be disappointed if I was trying to. So Thursday was 7 miles, 11-minute pace. That's about as easy as it gets for me. And then at Friday I did 3.3, which is like a 5K. I'll probably do the same thing today, but this was last week. 10-minute pace. Whenever I do like a 5K distance, that route for me, there about half of it is downhill, like a slight downgrade, and I have a tendency to want to like kick my pace up. So yeah, I'll probably do that again today because I want to take it easy. Because what I'm attempting to do is I started doing this new route. I shared some clips from my run last week. I think I did miles like, I don't know, it was like mile 3, 5, 4, something like that. I think it was mile 4, 8, 12, and then 14. The route that I'm attempting has a ton of elevation or grade. One of the biggest hills from my childhood is on it. I shared some of that from on Instagram and Substack last week, just as a post. But I was able to run. I hit the hill right around mile 4 or 5, I think, in my run. And I was able to run, like lightly run, easy run, about halfway up the hill. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to get to a point where I can get all the way up that hill, and then I can break, if you will, but just walk for a little bit. And then I want to be able to get to the end of that road. Now, this road that I'm running is the road that I grew up on, and it has a couple steep hills or steep inclines that are followed by steep drop-offs. It's all road. It's not like trail or anything. It's not super, like when I say drop-offs, if you're in the trail running community, you're going to be like, dude, that does not qualify. So this is all road. But if I go the full distance of what I've mapped out, it should be around a 16 or 17 mile run. Last week it was very hot. Last Saturday I made it 14 miles. in a weird turn of events, there was also like some activity going on. There was a shooting in that area. So it was kind of a weird, I kind of just didn't want to be out there. When I got to where I could have pushed another mile, and I think it's like a mile and a quarter to get to the end of the road. I was like, I was about halfway done with all of my electrolytes, my water, my gels. Everything was kind of like running out, and I was like, let's not put myself in a situation. In fact, if you watch the videos that I posted, at my last video, I admitted that I had called my son to come pick me up, and he wasn't able to come get me, so I had to finish it. It went from mile 12 to mile 14, but I was done at mile 12 for that long run. But it was a good long run. It did what it needed to do. It got me time on my legs. I was sore, a lot of walking, but not. So the thing is, I think my end pace was like 11:20, and if I'm doing that on that hilly, incline, that type of a run, when I get to the marathon, in theory, I should be able to. So right now, I'm just trying to break 5 hours because I haven't been able to do that. I can walk. I can take some easy points in if I need to, and I probably should do that. And this taught me that even with that being a 14-mile run and walking a lot and taking it easy, I still was at a better pace than either of my first two marathons. So while it was difficult, it was encouraging to say, look, you can walk a lot and still beat this time that you had in the past. So it was good for that. Sunday, I did 5 easy miles. Things started to cool down. We had a lot of storms and stuff earlier this week, so things kind of started to cool down. We're back into the 50s and 60s again. We were up to the 80s by, I think, Saturday we got into the 80s. I know Thursday, Friday we were pretty far up there in the temperature, but now we're back into like the 50s and 60s again. So Sunday I did 5 easy miles. Monday I did 3 very easy miles, and I threw in some mobility and stretching. I probably will do that again today. I'm trying to do this twice a week where I just kind of work, particularly my right leg. No weights. That's why I'm calling it mobility and strength, because I'm not really throwing weights on right now. I'm just trying to do lateral strengthening, because I feel like something like side to side is where the weakness is for me. It seems to activate the parts of my my glutes and my quad where I feel the pain when I start cramping. Calf as well. I was doing some single leg calf raises, so I can't really accomplish a whole lot in the time frame I have. I've only had 8 weeks for this, so we're already halfway through this training block, and then we're going to be right back into marathon. So the goal right now is to just show up and be able to complete this next marathon, hopefully in under 5 hours, but we're not going to have a time goal. We're just going to get it done, try to get the fueling right, and then prepare for the Marine Corps at the end of the year. So yeah, I mean, that was Monday. Tuesday I did 5.5. Tuesday was a good day. It was the first time since the Buffalo Marathon. So like we're 4 weeks out, and the first time that I really felt like I could run what I would call my pace. And what I mean by my pace is like where I feel like I'm running fast, and it doesn't feel like I'm really pushing myself. That's kind of what I mean by that, by my pace. And it was 5.5 miles at 9:30, but the final time's a little deceptive. So the first like 2.5 miles, maybe almost 3 miles, I was kind of like doing 9:40s and 10s. And then I was able to just like go, and I was able to hit like, I think I did like 8:30, maybe it was 8:40s. So I was able to get below like sub 9-minute miles back to back at the tail end of that run. And it felt good. It felt like, yeah, I do have this in me. So Wednesday I just did, because I did go a little hard on Tuesday. Wednesday I did 7. I said 7.25, but it's more like 7.15 at a pretty easy pace. And then yesterday, so we get 2 Thursdays in here, I did 3 easy miles, and probably do, like I said, I'll probably do something similar to that today, just so that I can prepare for the long run tomorrow. I really need to get out earlier on Fridays or on Saturdays when I do the long run. I have to do that because last week I think I left around 9. It's like 8:30 or 9, and I was struggling, man. I was really struggling with the heat. So hopefully I can get out earlier tomorrow. We'll see. My sleep schedule is always so jacked up after after working all week. I switch from nights to days, and the best time to go is first thing in the morning. Sometimes I don't wake up first thing in the morning, so it just depends on how the sleep goes. But my takeaway from this week of running is I'm feeling much better physically. One of the questions that you see people ask a lot of times is like, how long does it take to recover from a marathon? And I think that's like a multi-tiered question, because I think I've said this before. 1 week after the marathon, I could have run a 10K, 6 miles. I could have run a pretty decent 10K, and I'm going to have to do that coming up after this next marathon. But it didn't feel the greatest. Like, I could do it, but it didn't feel the greatest. Like you just don't feel like you're 100%. 2 weeks after the marathon, it's like your mind is telling you and your body is saying you're okay, but the second you start going, there's like a level you can't clear, or like a part of your athleticism that you can't access yet. And like I said, this past Tuesday, we're talking almost 4 weeks out from the last marathon. That was the first time, so we're talking 3.5 weeks, that I really felt like, oh, we can unload, we can do 8.5, so I can sprint. Sprinting for me is 8, which probably to some people sounds ridiculous, but yeah, I mean, feeling much better physically. And my takeaway was, like, my Tuesday run, I got those 8:30s, so that felt good. My legs are still a little bit sore, but I will say the strength and mobility that I did on Tuesday, or that I did on Monday, really helped. I could tell that it had an effect. Tuesday was the day that I really felt good, and it was the day after I did that. So I need to make that a priority today, get that done, and then make that a consistent part of the rest of my training for this training block. I mean, really, this being such a short training block, I'm probably two weeks away. Let me pull the calendar up and see. So if I taper 2 weeks from the 25th, that's going to put me at, well, that's not right. Oh, yeah, I guess it is right. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I'm really only got like 2.5 weeks of training if I do a 2-week taper. I guess I'll judge that based on how I feel. I do plan to do a 16 miles tomorrow. That run tomorrow is going to really dictate how I proceed for the rest of this very short training block. We'll just see. I mean, at this point, I'm just treating the Buffalo Marathon as one of my long runs for this next marathon. After that, I have a 10K in Little Miami, which is like near Cincinnati, I think, in Ohio. And then I'm probably going to take a break I'll still be running, but I'm probably going to take a break from the training and just give myself a couple of weeks, because I got into this 100-day streak that I'm trying to do too. So I've been running every day. So by the time I get done with those 2 races, I'm really going to be ready to just pack it in for a couple of weeks, take it easy, and really let my body have a chance to heal. It'll be a perfect time for it too, because it'll be August. The heat's going to be probably its worst in this area. I'll still want to get out there, but yeah, that's where we're at with the training. That's how, halfway to the holidays, July 25th, I'll try to post some stuff to give you guys an idea on how to track me. But yeah, that's where we're at with the running. That's how this past week and a half, really, because we're recording this on a Friday. We recorded last week on a Thursday. So yeah, looking forward to probably my hardest training week this next week before we start to slowly take things back. So, all right, let's turn our attention now to the news and get into our uncredible take on what's going on in the news. And the topic that's been sort of covering pretty much all my news feed, I don't know what's covering your news feed, but what's been all over my news feed is the Memorandum of Understanding, which has been dubbed the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding. And it kind of sounds like, I haven't read it. They just released the details of it like a day or two ago, which that was weird too. So like, they announced this last weekend with the plan to sign it. I think they signed it yesterday, Thursday, something like that, but they didn't want to release the details of it. It's almost like either they didn't know, or for some reason they didn't want, like, Trump always wants you to know how great of a deal he made. And immediately all kinds of speculation came out as to what, I think Iran was releasing what they thought the deal said. And And now that it's out, I think it's out. I haven't looked at it, but from what I'm hearing from commentary is, so it sounds like the only the only country that's getting anything out of it is Iran, which is kind of weird. The things that we are getting, or at least from my understanding, is the things that the U.S. and Israel are getting from this whole 3-4 month debacle is what we had before it started. Now, if I'm wrong, comment. I haven't been following it that closely. I thought about doing my own research and reading the JCPOA to see how it compared, but I'm not getting into the weeds on this. This is, sometimes I have to remind myself that this is the Uncredible podcast, so I don't have to do that stuff. Like if somebody says, "Oh, you didn't do your research," I know. That's kind of the point. It's like I'm just a regular guy. This is what I'm hearing, and what I'm hearing is, I'll tell you what's interesting. A couple of weeks ago, we did that political rewind where we looked at what Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin were saying, and I believe I haven't heard. Well, no, I saw Ben Shapiro for sure, but I haven't heard Mark Levin's side of this. But they're not happy, so that tells you something, right? That tells you that the people who are of the highest level of support of this war are disappointed in this deal. So that tells you that they didn't get what they wanted out of it, and they were the ones who were the biggest supporters of it. But I saw a clip on Facebook. I think it was either Facebook or Instagram of Ben Shapiro just kind of like not real happy about the deal. I didn't listen to it in deep. I just noticed his demeanor. And one thing that struck me from the clips that we used in our episode a couple weeks ago from March was how just downright giddy this guy was about, making fun of the son of the Ayatollah and his one leg. And I mean, it got really inappropriate at one point, especially for Ben Shapiro. But he was just like, there were points where Trump said things and he was just like cut from the clip and he was giggling like a little schoolgirl. It was weird, man. But now to see his demeanor where he's like super serious, he's looking at the camera real serious. It's like, this is serious. These are some of the bad things. It's like, okay, but it made me think something. So if the people who support Trump are MAGA, right? So if the people who support Trump are MAGA, and of late, since this war started, MAGA has kind of separated itself from certain types of people, basically the independents, like Republicans who were like opposed to the war. We'll call it that way. Because, I mean, obviously I could go and name the people that everyone names, Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, and so on and so forth, that they've been ousted by the MAGA group, whatever MAGA is, which, at this point, MAGA seems to represent the people who are loyal Trump supporters. Those people want you to believe that that's what the Republican Party is. And this seems to demonstrate something that I think we all know, but it's starting to get there. We're at the end of what is known as the MAGA movement. The Make America Great Again. This what is it, 16-year journey? Was it 12-year journey? How long has it been? 3 terms, because he skipped one. So 12 years plus a couple years on it. So 13, 14-year journey of Make America Great Again. It's almost over. It's almost over because, it started with Donald Trump wanting to make America great again. And it will end, based on the way this has played out, it will end, similar to the Tea Party, it will end as he fades out. I mean, what was the Tea Party has now essentially become the Warhawks, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, and then Rand Paul, which Rand Paul's kind of been quiet lately, which is kind of weird, or maybe I'm just not paying attention to it. But those 3 guys represented the Tea Party back in the day, back when Trump ran it initially. And that movement has been entirely engulfed in what would be considered neoconservative Warhawk tendencies. They're all kind of wrapped up, except Rand, who's sort of I'm not sure where he's at. I kind of feel like Rand Paul is playing defense right now because people like Thomas Massey, Tulsi Gabbard, those people falling off, those more independent-leaning people that Trump used to get elected, are now kind of they're doing business. They're looking ahead, trying to get through this administration on the next thing to when they can be effective. That's what it seems like. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's been doing other things and I just haven't heard about it. But this Memorandum of Understanding, it seems so one of the big talking points is how much money is Iran going to get? And I saw a clip of Donald Trump saying they're not getting any money from the U.S. It's just money that it was the funniest. I should clip it, but I'm not going to. It was a clip of him at the G7 answering questions. And he says, it's not our money, it's their money. We stole it, and we're just allowing them to have access to it. But the numbers that are being thrown around are like $200 and $300 billion that, you know, if you think about it, those are frozen assets that Iran did not have access to, that they now have access to as a result of this memorandum. And then Trump said something like, no, they don't just get access to it. They're going to have to behave. He treats them like a child. He talks like they're a child. And it's like that, from what I understand, and I understand very little about this, those are pretty much similar terms to the JCPOA. I don't know how those funds tied into the JCPOA, but it sounds to me like basically Iran's not getting a nuclear weapon the way they were before. Now, I did hear one commentator say no, it wasn't a commentator. It was J.D. Vance said the difference between this and the JCPOA is that the JCPOA allowed Iran to reach a certain level of nuclear capability, where this slowly reduces. So this somehow reduces it. But there's also a weird 60-day limit involved here. So it kind of feels like they just gave a name to the 60-day ceasefire that they had before that they didn't really follow. And so, like, I asked the question, like, what did everyone get out of it? Well, Iran seems to be getting everything back, or at least on some level, everything they had back and more, because they're getting access to this money, which who knows how long that's been seized or blocked or frozen or whatever they're saying. The U.S. is getting the Straits of Hormuz open, which were already open before the war. And they're getting what seems to be a very similar, check and balance on the nuclear program of Iran. So I guess in a way that's something we got, but we already kind of had that before. If Trump's the one that tore that up in the first place. And by the way, people say these newscasters are like, tore up. Did he actually tear it up, or did he just walk away from it? I don't understand that story either. But then the one thing that some of the major supporters of the war in the U.S. were for was Israel. And Donald Trump made some sort of comment kind of like Israel needs to behave itself too. He said Israel wouldn't exist without him. Like he kept Israel alive, kind of a thing. It was a weird moment there too. But he kind of basically said Israel's going to have to do their part too and not bombing Lebanon. So it seems like controls got put on Israel, or expectations were put on Israel. It didn't really seem like Israel got anything but Iran won't attack you anymore. That seems like okay. Which again, I think they had that too. Maybe, if you go back to October 7th, I guess you would argue not. But, and then you've got America getting what it already had, and then Iran getting something more. So it kind of seems like, correct me if I'm wrong on how this works, but it kind of seems like from the media that I'm listening to, Iran gets some stuff and everyone else just gets back to square one, which is better than where we're at now, right? So going back is better, but then it raises the question, what was the point? Right? Did we just do this whole war so Iran could get in a better position than they were before the war? That wasn't the plan. That certainly wasn't the plan. So, and then, like I said, my uncredible take from all this is seeing the reaction from the people who've supported this war all along and been behind Donald Trump on this. You sort of saw the people who were opposed to war that supported MAGA going in got sort of put on the outs. And now that Trump is doing a 360, those people aren't coming back in because this was done. And he's now turning his back on the people who supported the war that wanted to go further. So it kind of makes me think the inevitable is happening and MAGA is coming to an end. If the House and Senate, or even just the House, go to the Democrats, that's it. Trump's presidency he'll be a lame duck president for a couple of years, and then we'll be moving on to the next election. But this might be the end of what we know of as MAGA being like, it's coming to an end. I have an article coming out in a couple of weeks about boomers, but it's coming to an end. This might be the last hurrah for boomer leadership. Like this might be the beginning of the end of that generation's stranglehold on the U.S. political system. Like this might be, and personally, I think that's a good thing. Not necessarily because I have anything against the generation, but I think the generation is getting older. And I do write about that in an article that's coming out in a couple of weeks, where it's nothing personal, but people from the 50s and 60s ought not be making policy about AI. Well, why not? They don't understand it. We've all had that experience where this is a major detour from the news, but we've all had that moment where we've had to help a boomer with their phone. They don't understand the internet. They don't understand, like some people do, but most of them don't know what's going on. That generation is coming to an end, like for real. And what that means is the next generations, Generation X, millennials, they're stepping into those roles. And this could be the beginning of it. So, at least, particularly on the Republican side, but you look at the left as well, the Democrats. I'm not sure which boomer that would be pushed. You hear a lot of talk about AOC, and I don't know what generation Pete Buttigieg is in, but he's not in the boomer generation. I don't know how old Gavin Newsom is. I mean, I guess we could look that up because he's the other one that they kind of throw out there. I don't take him seriously. I probably should because he probably is going to be the candidate they go with. How old is Gavin Newsom? He might be. Maybe the Democrats are still a ways off on this. 67. What's that make him? Okay, so yeah, Gavin Newsom would be Gen X as well. So yeah, I mean, this might be it. This might be it, guys. I mean, I don't know if that's it's good at the presidential level, seeing that happen. I just think that the average age of House and Senate has been so high for so long. And I mean, as far back as when I first started podcasting in 2014, those episodes are long dead, but I was like, it's time for this shift. Like, it's well past due. And like I said, I wrote an article about it. It'll be coming out. And really what the article is about is we got this. Like, it's not meant to be spiteful. It's like it's time for you to step down and let us handle it. So yeah, I mean, basically my take on the news right now is, well, one take is, did anyone but Iran get anything? Like, what did we get? Like, if you were to compare the Memorandum of Understanding, the conditions we're going to get, how are they better for the U.S., Israel, or Iran? Like, compare them to before the war, to January, or you can go back to December. Like how will those conditions be different and better for particularly the U.S. and Israel? You can understand how they're not better for Iran in the sense that they got bombed, but the overall, let me put it this way. If Iran had asked for what they're getting before the war, would they have gotten it? And did the U.S. and Israel get anything from this conflict that they wanted as a result? Like, are we in a better place, or do they feel like they got those things? I don't know. It seems to me like they did it. And then the second thing is, I think MAGA's dead, and I think the boomer generation is on its way out in terms of leadership in the United States. So that's my take on the news. Let's now look at the world through an uncredible lens. And I'll have to be honest, doing this transition has always been tough for me. Trying to figure out how to make this transition has been a challenge. But yeah, let's look at the world through an uncredible lens. All right, I'm going to try to do this. So what I want to do today for the main topic is I want to talk about AI, and specifically something that I found with its image generation and the perspective problem. That's what I'm calling it. And I have a bunch of images I want to show you from some of my articles. So I use ChatGPT specifically for two things. One, to edit my articles once they're done. And two, to create the header images. This is one of the things that inspired me to get back into writing. Was I always had trouble coming up with these header images. I like doing it, but it's always been a challenge. I used to take photographs and post them, but then you have to find a good photograph. And then for a while I was using like royalty-free images, but I got into a situation with that where somebody complained that I used one of their images without their, I don't know. It was a weird thing where they put it on a site that I guess you're supposed to give credit, and I didn't give credit. But I didn't think it was, some of these sites that are royalty free, there's tiers of images and you can sort by those tiers. And I thought that I had picked one that was royalty free, that didn't require me to cite it. And I also didn't even think about it. So it was like, whatever. But the guy was like made a joke about it on Twitter at the time. And I was like, dude, I didn't even know. So then as a result, I went to just using one general image. So ChatGPT being able to do the editing and the actual header images has been such a relief, because those images are yours according to what I've read. So they become yours and you can use them for your articles. So it takes a lot of the thinking and effort out of that aspect so I can focus on the content. But so when I make these images for articles, I usually feed the article into ChatGPT for editing. And then after it's edited the article, I then use the content from the article to help, brainstorm what the image should look like. I have it created and then we go back and forth. And a couple of times when I've done this, I've run into this. It's a common problem. And the best way I can describe it is it's a perspective problem that AI has trouble getting the right perspective. And the first time this happened to me severely, where this was the worst example of it, was this picture. I'm trying to put these up. I have these labeled, so I'm going to try to go through these one at a time. Hopefully I can jump through. But it was this article is called Solving Conflict. You can find that on the Substack if you do a search through the content. But this is an article I wrote after a bird got into my basement. I wrote this article talking about how me, my son, and my wife all came up with different ways to get this bird out of our basement. And I turned it into a teaching moment for how to solve conflict. But the point of the article was we were trying to get the bird to go out of the door. And so I prompted AI, ChatGPT, to come up with an image of a bird flying out of a door. I'm telling you, no matter what I did, this bird would never face out the door. And I tried different things. I got real sarcastic. Sometimes I get real sarcastic with ChatGPT. And I'll start being like, oh, you see, there were a couple times where it just created the same image. And this was the most, I couldn't find my actual chat with this, but this was the most egregious of them, because the AI actually thought that this was facing out the door. And then it later corrected itself and said, oh, I see what's happening. All the images that we have as a reference point don't show a bird going out. They're always going in. And then it always blames the image generator, whatever that's about. You're the image generator, but apparently it uses software behind the scenes, whatever. But this was the first time that I came in contact with it, and I haven't had too much trouble with it since. But then our article that's coming out next week, let me see if I can get this one here. So I wanted a header image to paint that picture that I talked about earlier of a line of people going to an auditorium where they have to sign in. And the article was titled "People Love Tyranny." This is going to come out next Wednesday, this article. And this was the first image that it created. Basically what I wanted was this line of people going into the auditorium. And then this that represented embracing tyranny, just going along with the crowd and following what everyone else is doing. And I wanted one person looking from the line, considering maybe I'll just choose freedom instead of whatever this is. And so I wanted that represented. So I prompted it to do an image with a line of people waiting to sign in and going into the auditorium. And the way I was perceiving it in my head was from the position of the person taking the sign in. So me, right? If people were in a line, I'm looking this way, I would be looking at that line. The auditorium would be behind me, maybe visible this direction. And then in the back was going to be this, I showed you this image here. Hopefully I have it up there. Of in the background where somebody could turn around and leave the line and go to freedom. I thought that was pretty obvious, but it came out with this. And what's weird is if you notice, the people are signing in and then they're leaving out the door, which is the exact opposite of what I was going for. I wanted there to be a distinction between the people who are choosing freedom to leave the line and go out the door and the people who are going into the auditorium and going along with the crowd. So I wanted those to be two distinct things. And the way I was describing it perspective-wise was towards the foreground was the way towards tyranny, and away from the foreground was the way towards freedom. That was the idea. And so first of all, the sign-in sheet is behind everybody, and then they're all in line to go out the door. So like, I'm like, okay, well, it's the first try, right? So you're like, oh, I'll give it a shot. So I explained why that wasn't going to work. So then it came up with this one where I asked it to put the person who was considering leaving the line in the line, because I didn't want them just like way off to the side. And then it came up with this one, and you'll notice that it kind of understood the assignment, but it's still kind of off. So the sign-in sheet is still from my perspective, but the auditorium is in front of me, not behind me. So like positionally, I wanted this to look a little different, but it's getting closer now. But notice that while it was able to get everybody half the people going into the auditorium, if you in the foreground, notice in the background, there's still a line to go out the door to freedom. And through all this conversation, the lady who's contemplating going to freedom is now looking the wrong direction. So it's like, okay, it's got this weird perspective problem where it doesn't seem to understand which direction. So I start using words like background, foreground, left, right, trying to get it to understand. And I went through a couple iterations of this, and I finally gave up. And I think this is the final image. I didn't confirm this, but I finally came up with this image where this at least captures most of the people coming to the sign-in sheet, not going away from it, but coming to it. You also have this perspective where some people have already signed in and they're going into the auditorium. So we're getting closer to what I wanted. But notice on the left background, so there's the woman considering leaving the line. She's looking the wrong direction, but this captures what I wanted anyway. In this image, she's considering, like she's leaving and thinking maybe I'm making the wrong decision to go to freedom. So that I can live with that in terms of what I wrote with the article. But notice in the background, I still have people wanting to go out the door, which the whole point of the article was like, you're the only person, like it takes one person to, like I wanted everybody in the line to choose to go along with it. And then to have the one oddball make the choice to go the other direction. But I lived with this one. I did tell it for no reason. I told the ChatGPT that like, by the way, notice that in the background, we still have people going out the door that I want nobody going out. But it captured it for the most part. So what you're seeing, though, is you're seeing this difficulty with AI to understand foreground, background, and just general perspective of like positions of things and how they should be or how you're describing them. Now, some of that could be the way I'm describing it, but what I want you to understand is like with each image, I describe parts of it and say change it, and it can't. It literally cannot do it. Now, this last one, this is for that article I was talking about, and this does not, I ended up scrapping this one altogether, but this was for that article about boomers that I was telling you about that I'm writing. So I wanted a picture of an old man sitting in the passenger seat of a truck with his son driving the truck. Now, my vision for this was from, you know how you enter a truck or a car door where you open it and you're kind of like behind the door? Well, if you were to shut it and stay in that position, you would be able to see the rearview mirror. You'd be able to see the person looking forward, the person in the passenger seat looking forward. And then to his left, you'd be able to slightly see the person driving, but not big. And I even said all this. I was like, yeah, fuzzy in the background is the son confidently driving, whatever. So one of the things I wanted, and I described this in it, was in the rearview mirror, because from the way I was perceiving this was from that slightly different angle, was looking kind of through the windshield, but you could see the reflection of the rearview mirror, and I wanted the sun setting in the rearview mirror. That was my goal. So I run all this through ChatGPT, and I get this. So if you'll notice, the rearview mirror is literally facing the wrong direction. Like not the rearview mirror. The side view mirror is literally facing the wrong direction. So it's okay. So this is the first one. And also notice that the sun's hand is just in this weird location. It's just floating out there. Like, what is it doing? Like, why that? So anyway, so then I was like, okay, this is a normal first run, by the way. It's like, okay, we got to make some adjustments. So I made some concessions and I told it to do some changes. So what I suggested, since it was going to have this weird forward side angle, like looking back instead of looking forward, I decided to go, okay, let's show me the back of that, turn that side view mirror around, but then we can have the reflection. So I was trying to work with it. So then I get this. And this wasn't too bad, right? This is okay. But then it really starts to bother me that the sun's hand is floating. Like it's nowhere. It's just like, what is it doing? Now, you could imagine that it's on the stick shift, but I didn't say anything about having a stick shift or it being on it. What I wanted his right hand on the steering wheel and his left hand relaxed on the door because he's confident. That was kind of what I was trying to portray. But it keeps giving the right arm, and no matter what I did, his right arm, no matter how I tried it, it kept putting him in this position. And the more it did it, the more you look at this image, the more it almost looks like the son and the father are two totally different images that, like, it almost looks like if you were to hide, I'm doing this like you guys can see that. If you were to hide the father, the son's arm almost looks like it's on the side view mirror all the way out the other side. It's like, what are we doing? So I did try it one more time. I was getting kind of frustrated, but I'm like, let's try this one more time. And this is when I gave up. So it's like, it keeps moving his arm, but you notice now it put, in order to fix the fact that the arm was floating, it put like a center console in the truck, which some trucks have it, but this is clearly an older truck that wouldn't have it to be a single seat, bench seat across. So it's like, okay. So what it tried to do was, instead of putting his right hand on the steering wheel and his left hand on the window, it tried to put something under his arm to justify what was going on there. So I show all of this and I share all of this because AI clearly has this weird, like, and I see it in the images, but it makes me wonder, like, it has this perspective problem where it doesn't seem to always understand the perspective that is being described by the person, like, coding it or prompting it or whatever. And that inability to understand perspective the way humans understand it got me thinking about, like, what other mistakes could it make in other real world, like things that we might expect AI to be doing in the next few years. So I got to thinking about it. It's like, if AI has a perspective problem and it perceives things, like commands, the wrong way, what does that look like, for example, when like with a self-driving car? It's like, okay, so you can't seem to get the perspective right on this particular issue. And that might only be like for example, I think there was a story of one of these Waymos, like, driving directly into there was a bridge, and it just drove directly into it. And we've all seen that, where like a Google Maps or an Apple Maps will tell you can go somewhere and you can't. What happens when the AI uses the data that's available to it and it's not accurate data, and it just confidently pushes through? You know, that could be a police barrier. It could be like a temporary concrete wall for road work that hasn't been updated in the system. And you say, oh, well, that's what the cameras are for. But this is my point. Like, with the cameras, is it able to, like, do these flaws appear in these other systems? I don't know, but it gets me wondering, like, so what if we start using robots for surgery, and you start giving it plots and points and to do a surgery, and its perspective is slightly off? The thing that stood out to me, particularly when I was doing the bird one, because the bird one got me really frustrated, because it was the first time it happened. I'm like, dude, what is your problem? Like, I was arguing with AI. And what really bothered me about that particular chat was there were a couple of times where I said, do you see how this image is exactly the same as the other one in terms of perspective? And it was like, no, in this one, the bird is flying out the door. And I'm like, no, it's not. And then its response would be to generate another image the same. Like, a different style, colors would change and whatever, lighting would change, but it'd be the same bird flying in the door. And you're like, okay. And I went through probably 20 iterations of that one, and then I ended up using the one with the bird flying in and just left it alone. But if it has this perception problem and it comes with that confidence that it's correct, that's a problem. Like, when I look at AI through the Uncredible lens, on the one hand, I see all this opportunity. I mean, you hear, hopefully, if I did things right, you hear the new introduction. I created that song from text prompts, right? It took a while, a couple, just like with the images, you generate one and go, I don't like that, generate another one, just kind of that kind of thing. But it has its advantages, like with editing. image generation, music creation. I know people are using it for video. But then there's this other side of it to where it's like, if it's not able to see its own problem and it's wrong, how is that going to work in the real world? Like, what is that going to look like? And it's concerning to me because when I was writing for medium.com, and medium.com, you have to submit your articles. You don't have to, but you can submit your articles to what they have what's called publications, and some people run publications. And for running publications, they get more readership and more traffic, something like that. And so you join these publications. And I remember the first time an article that I wrote got rejected because AI scanned my article and deemed that it was too much AI, and it was no AI. Now, the reason I know that is because it was an article that I wrote in conflict with somebody who was saying you shouldn't use AI. And I thought, okay, well, in order to respond to this, I probably shouldn't use AI, even though I was using it at the time. And it was the first article that got rejected for using too much AI, and I used none. I didn't even let AI edit the thing. It was the first time I'd done that too on Medium. And I was so frustrated. Because I was like, AI is telling somebody that my writing is artificial intelligence, and it's not. And what I'm finding is people who write specifically will intentionally put errors in their writing so that AI will dub it as not AI. And so like you could have AI edit a whole article or even write a whole article and then go through and then like botch some things up, and then AI is going to miss it. And it's like, we're headed towards a world where people are going to be using AI, and the question is going to be, did you use AI to help you? And artificial intelligence could potentially be judging actual intelligence. That's a different kind of AI, actual intelligence, as artificial. And here's the scary part. The scary part is that people who do not have actual intelligence will believe the artificial intelligence over the people who have actual intelligence. Imagine this conversation. Let's say you're in, so here's something new that's happening at my work right now. We are doing our reviews, and one of the things we have to certify is whether or not we're allowed to use AI to edit and to help whatever. You're allowed to do it. But you do have to certify whether or not you did. Here's the question. Let's say I don't use AI. I have a master's degree. Let's say I write it in a way that, polished, edited, comes out clean. I do my work the right way, and it comes out and AI says, you used AI. But I didn't, right? I factually did not use AI. And then I click the button that says, no, I didn't use AI. Am I going to find myself in human resources for lying? Right? And am I going to have this conversation where somebody's like, you're allowed to use AI. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It's like, I didn't use it. Well, see, the problem is the lying about it is the problem. We want you to use AI. We encourage using AI. Like, I can see that conversation happening. It reminds me of a situation that happened in college where a friend of mine did not what do they call that when you take someone's words and you don't cite it? He did not plagiarize somebody and was accused of doing it. And it was a whole investigation. I think they did find out that he didn't actually plagiarize. It just happened to be that his words were pretty close. That's the weird thing about research papers is everybody's using the same sources, and we're human, so we're going to write similar. But he did not intentionally plagiarize, but he got in trouble for it and he didn't do it. That's a weird feeling when you legitimately didn't do something and someone accused you of it. And I have a feeling that we're headed that direction with AI, that there's going to be a lot of weird conversations about like people trusting AI. I genuinely think that might have been part of this Iran war, this bombing of this, the famous bombing of the Iran school, girls' school. I think part of that was AI. I think they used AI to assess that, and then they just took AI's word for it and made a mistake. And it's like AI is working off of old information, and that's not good, right? Like that can have real world consequences that we're gonna have to figure out how to separate artificial and actual intelligence. It's gonna be tough to do. So I guess my look at this through an Uncredible lens is that AI it's moving fast, and it's putting us in a world where we get great benefits from it, but with it having these issues of perception, making these errors and then people not noticing them and just moving forward, it does create a weird conversation about like self-driving cars and who's like for example, if your self-driving car crashes, whose fault is it when AI messes up? Like robotics, surgery, manufacturing. Oh man, like one thing they're trying to do at my work right now is to replace powered industrial vehicles, like manned powered vehicles, with like AGVs, like automated. What happens when one of those hits somebody? And then, somebody says, oh, well, that's impossible. Those can't hit people. They have sensors. What if it perceives it wrong? Like, what if it misunderstands depth or something and didn't understand forward, back, whatever the command is? And it was a one-off situation. Those are the kinds of weird conversations. So, and when I look at the world through an Uncredible lens, I see all the benefits of AI, but I also see some scary real world, like, situations happening down the road. So yeah, that concludes the main topic. Now let's get into our podcast feature. And for this week with the podcast feature, I've got a couple of things I want to highlight. The first one is, and I may or may not throw a clip of this in here. My plan is to do it. A lot depends on my timing. So this past week, was it this past week? Yeah, past Tuesday, I had the opportunity to sit down with Daryl Perry of the Your Level Fitness podcast. By the way, that is the first time I've said all that correctly. So Daryl, thanks, man. Appreciate it. He had me on his podcast, and he's got a couple different podcasts. This I believe is the first of a smaller set of podcasts that he's doing on how people get into running. And so I think I was the first one on that feed, but there's a couple feeds you can find it on. I'll share a clip of the interview, but Daryl and I sat down to talk about how I got into running, but we expanded from that and we got into my view on efficiency, because part of the reason I got into running was I was walking and it was more efficient from a calorie standpoint to run, like from a time and calorie standpoint. So he and I kind of branched off of that initial conversation and talked about efficiency. We talked about workplace interaction, and we had a real good conversation about what is Uncredible, and why I'm so passionate about the Uncredible, those of us who are Uncredible, the workers, the mothers, the people who are in the trenches doing the work all the time, why I'm passionate about that, and why I took this direction of really earning their respect rather than the corporate elites or, the people, the professors and the professionals, so to speak, rather than seeking their respect. Why I decided I preferred the respect that I earned from people who are just everyday workers. So a great conversation with Daryl. He and I are probably going to do some other stuff. I do want to sit down with him at some point and have a conversation for Uncredible for this podcast. But it was fun for me because from a technological standpoint, I really wasn't sure. I've said this and the technology's held up, but I really wasn't sure if it was going to work. It did. He and I actually had the week prior a 3-hour conversation where we just kind of talked to see where we were at, what would we want to talk about. And, in terms of like being able to record that meeting and do that meeting, the tech held up the whole way. So that was nice. So yeah, check that out. The interview with Daryl Perry on the Your Level Fitness podcast. But for our actual feature, because I didn't want to it kind of feels arrogant to feature myself on another person's podcast as the primary feature. That's sort of like the low-hanging fruit. So I did do the work. I did get into Craig Lewis's Running Tales again. Now, he was one of our, I just posted the clip. So he was episode 1. So episode 0 was actually, this is interesting. So episode 1, how this is playing out is weird. Episode 101 was our second podcast. Episode 00, I actually featured Daryl's podcast, Your Level Fitness Podcast. I did a terrible job featuring it, so he gets his thumbs up again or tip of the hat. And then Craig Lewis was our second episode. And so I went back to he has some great conversations. I wish I could listen to more of his stuff, and I probably will. I'll probably jump into it more. Craig is on Substack, so check him out. I'll put the links in the show notes to the episodes I'm going to refer to. The first episode I won't spend a lot of time talking about, but it was, this is my name for it. He was talking to a guy named Rodney Lowe, And I mean, the most average of average runners. Just a great conversation. If you love that theme of Uncredible, or you listen to people who run marathons or half marathons or ultras and you go, I could never do that. That's a great conversation. I mean, it's a really good laid back conversation. And this is a guy that has no misgivings about who he is or what he's capable of. And he literally is just an average runner. And it was a good conversation. So I jumped right from that conversation to another episode that I had actually already had saved. And I found out that Abby Heffern is actually on Substack, and I want to push Substack as much as I can. And so I really wanted to focus on this particular episode. So he talks to her about her journey into ultra running, and specifically, I think she was saying she'd just run her first 100-mile ultra, and she had a really bumpy road to getting there. She had some digestive issues, was throwing up, just couldn't get to those longer distances. And I think in the end, she ended up doing like an all-natural approach. Her stomach just reacts a lot. I'll let her tell that story. But I believe it took her 14 ultras to get to her first 100. And I really appreciated this conversation, because I have stupidly or not, I have really gone out of my way to jump into longer distances that, as somebody who's never run in my life, I've been, jumping into a marathon in my first 7 months of running, probably not ideal, like really running. And then to be disappointed less than a year later, or exactly a year later, when I still can't quite hit that distance without cramping or some issues. It was really just like nice to hear somebody tell the story of trying to move through those distances and struggling through it. And Abby is also a coach. So Craig jokes during the episode that he's kind of like stealing a coaching session. So a lot of good stuff in there if you're thinking about getting into any kind of long distance running. For me personally, I really love the conversation, because here's a person that really just committed to doing it, which is, for me right now, it's the marathon distance. I'm trying to figure it out, and it doesn't happen overnight. And it was nice to, you see all these success stories, and you see people who jump into these longer distances and they have great times right away. It was nice to hear this story from somebody who really struggled at a longer distance and faced challenges and had to overcome them. So really good conversation. Check out Craig Lewis's Running Tales with Ultra Runner Abby Heffern. I called it the long road to 100 miles. So check her out. I'm also going to put both of their Substacks in there. I really want to encourage people to get on Substack. I think that platform is, I think it's different. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just because I'm on it, but it's different in terms of what the creator can do. And I feel like my interactions on there are different than what I have on other social media. So I think they're more in depth. Like, I really feel like the people that there are some people that you're always going to have that thumbs up, good job, great article. That's going to be a part of social media. But I feel like the door is there on Substack, the way they're building it with the articles and just the longer form approach. It feels like it slows everything down in a world that is just hyper focused on going fast. I wish I could get into it more, and the more that I get into it, the happier I am in terms of that interaction. So, I've made good interactions, good connections through Instagram with guys like Daryl Perry is a perfect example. We featured him here. And then just being able to interact with these people, it seems like it's a little bit easier to get to that level on Substack. It took Daryl and I connecting through another person that I ran at the exact same event at, where on Substack, I feel like I'm getting more interactions like that without ever having to meet the people or come in close contact with them. So yeah, I mean, check out Craig Lewis and check out their Substacks, read some of their articles. That's Craig Lewis's Running Tales, and then Abby Heffern and her, I hope I'm saying her last name right, I apologize if I'm not, and her long road to 100 miles. And Craig Lewis is on YouTube, Spotify. He's pretty much everywhere. So check him out. Same with Daryl. Daryl's on all that stuff too. So check both of those out. All right, let's wrap things up with our quote of the week. And it's a pretty simple one. The quote of the week is this: Oh, I hope I get this right. Sometimes I really like to do the zoom in feature on this, and sometimes I mess it up. And like if I'm too high or too low, I screwed up. Probably just screwed it up right there. So our quote of the week this week is push yourself past comfortable. Push yourself past comfortable. And the reason I chose that particular quote this week was because I kind of had to do that for the first time in a long time on last Saturday when I hit 12 miles, I was ready to be done with that run. I was over it, completely over it. And I decided to call my son, have him bring me home, and he couldn't come and get me. So here I was, I had to push myself, and it was fine. I did fine. I walked, ran. It was fine. I just didn't want to do it. It was one of those things where I was like, I don't need this in my life. Who cares? But I mean, there's a big difference between 12 and 14 miles. There's a big difference on your legs and in your endurance and in your mental state. And I really think it was good for me mentally in terms of like, hey, you can't just call it every time you're just done with something. You have to find a way to push through. So I was kind of glad that I wasn't able to get picked up and I had to finish that because every excuse in the book was in my head. Oh, I'm out of water. Oh, I'm too hot. Oh, this and that. I made it fine. Made it home fine. Legs were a little sore afterwards, but nothing crazy. But yeah, it's okay to push yourself past comfortable. I think that's a message we need to hear specifically here in the United States right now is like, I listen to a lot of financial shows, Caleb Hammer, things like that. People aren't comfortable pushing themselves past their limit. And I don't even mean like your physical limit, but like just, I don't want to do it today, like dieting, right? Well, I want to eat more calories. Well, it's okay to push yourself. You don't have to be comfortable all the time. And it's probably better if you're not comfortable. And the more you push yourself past comfortable, the more comfortable you get with being in that place where you're beyond your comfort. So I think that's a good thing. So, yep, push yourself past comfortable. All right, let's close things out. And I'll just say thanks for listening and watching the Uncredible podcast. Remember to subscribe to the Substack. Just go to uncredible.me. Link in the show notes, as always. If you're listening on YouTube or you're watching on, I just messed that up. If you're watching on YouTube and listening on Spotify, be sure to like and subscribe. That's important. If you've already subscribed and you're like, oh, I don't have to like the episode, it does help if you like the episodes. Check out on YouTube those clips, by the way. Those are coming out now. So if you're new to the episode or new to the podcast and you want to just get into some of the smaller stuff like, oh, I like the running training. Well, I'm starting to get all my training up for the Buffalo Marathon, stuff like that. So check that out. Let's see. Oh, Uncredible merch. Favorite shirt. Second favorite shirt. I can't remember. I probably said like 3 of these are my favorite shirt. I have 3 of these ones that are of this material. Highly recommend it from merch.uncredible.me. This one was just kind of a fun thing. I was trying to do like a Sega Genesis Nintendo version of the Uncredible logo, and this is kind of how it came out. And this shirt I 100% thought was going to be terrible when it came, and it's one of my favorite shirts. So it's actually one of my favorite pictures too. That's on the wall behind me. I'm trying to get some more decor because my wife's my family's outdoor porch stuff is gone. So in order to spruce things up, I have to put some stuff on the walls. I'm actually in about 10 minutes. I'm going to go look at some chairs to put back here too, from Marketplace. So it'll be the first time I spend any money on the studio. So it'll be kind of cool. So check that out. Merch.uncredible.me, shirts, cups, logos, all that stuff. Stickers. By the way, you can get stickers. I only have one left that I can actually hold up. It's this one. I like this one. I don't know why I like this one so much, but I do have one left. So yeah, check that out. Merch.uncredible.me. Follow on Instagram. I am going to try to post the full Uncredible song at some point here in the near future. That'll land on Instagram at Jeremy Lundmark as well as on the Substack if I can figure out how to do that. I've got it downloaded. I just have to merge it. So yeah. Thanks for watching, and listen, if you're a supporter, I appreciate it. If you go to any of these people's links, I appreciate it. All of the support, all the time you spend listening to this is really, it is appreciated. And if you do go to support with Merch Uncredible or even like a like or something like that, it's highly appreciated. So thank you to those of you who are supporting and watching this far into the episode. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And remember, stay uncredible. Night shift, swing shift, day shift, no quit, no quit, no quit. Building their world while they talk about us, talk about us, talk about us.
shift, day shift. No quit, no quit, no quit. We are the night shift, swing shift, day shift. No quit, no quit, no quit. Building their wall, building their wall. While they talk about us, all they talk about us. Educated, experienced, still not credible. So we embraced it. Now we're uncredible.